Hello, this is Ahmed. Ahmed suddenly felt that he has a severe headache, so he decided to go to the doctor, and the doctor said that he needs an MRI scan. So let's talk slightly about MRI scans. It works on the basis of nuclear magnetic imaging that was discovered by Bloch and Brissell in 1952. However, it wasn't until the 1970s when Raymond Damien proposed the idea of using these magnetic fields in order to plot an image of the entire body, and in 1977 the first MRI machine was built. An MRI machine is able to view the water content of the body, and although water is composed of two atoms, hydrogen and oxygen, an MRI machine is only able to view the hydrogen atoms. These hydrogen atoms have tiny magnetic field associated with the protons inside their nucleus. In nature, they are randomly aligned and they cancel each other out. However, an MRI machine has a big magnetic field that will cause the tiny magnetic fields from the protons to line up in the direction of the external magnetic fields. Not all protons will be spinning in the same direction. Some will be in the spin up while others will be in the spin down, which will cause them to cancel each other out, and since the spin up is lower in energy than the spin down, there are usually more protons in that position. To illustrate the point, we can say that the external magnetic field is along the z-axis, while the tiny proton magnetic field is processing around it in the x and y plane. The external magnetic field is so large that it's blocking the smaller magnetic field from the proton that we're interested in measuring. You can sort of think of it as the stars and the sun in the morning. You cannot really see the stars in the morning, not because they're not there, but because the sunlight is so bright. In an MRI scan, a photon of light with a certain frequency is used. This light has two major effects. The first one is that it reduces the magnitude of the external magnetic field while in the same time introducing a new magnetic field in the transverse direction. We can easily now measure this new magnetic field by placing it in an electric conductor, and a corresponding current will be produced. The size of this current can easily be measured, and it corresponds to the magnitude of the magnetic field. The photon frequency has to match what is known as the Larmor frequency, and the Larmor frequency is the rate of precessions of the proton magnetic field around the external magnetic field, and this value is 42.5 megahertz per Tesla for a hydrogen. When the pulses stop, the external magnetic fields begin to go back to its original value, while the transverse magnetic field decays and emits a photon in the process. The time required for the external magnetic field to go back to two-thirds of its original value is known as the spin lattice relaxation, and it's shown by the symbol T1. T1 gives information about the ability of the surrounding tissue to exchange thermal energy, and it can last up to 2 seconds. However, spin-spin relaxation is the time required for the transverse magnetic field to decay to one-third of its original value, and it's shown as T2. T2 gives information about the homogeneity of the surrounding atoms. It is usually longer for liquids than tissues. Collectively, T1 and T2 are known as the intrinsic factors, as they describe the characteristic of the target tissue and compared to water. Other scanning parameters are the extrinsic factors. These are related to the pulsing sequence used in the MRI scan. The extrinsic factors are divided into echo time and repetition time. Echo time is the time from sending the pulse to the time of generating the signal in the MRI machine, while the repetition time is the time of sending the second pulse. There are two types of MRI scans based on either the differences between T1 or T2. In a T1 weighted image, water has low signal, it appears dark, while fat has a stronger signal, it appears bright. Since the gray matter is full of melanated axons, it's gonna appear bright, while the cerebrospinal fluid will appear dark. Another characteristic of T1 weighted images is that it has a short echo time and a short repetition time. This will suppress the T2 and make sure a greater resolution is provided for these kind of images. In T2 weighted images, water appears bright while fat appears intermediately bright. This gives a slightly different image of the brain than the T1 weighted images, with the cerebrospinal fluid being extremely bright while the gray matter is less bright. Opposing to T1 weighted images, T2 weighted images have long echo time and a long repetition time. This will increase the time of decay of the transverse magnetic field and provide clarity to the image. You might ask yourself, since 99% of the body's content is water, how does an MRI machine know which part of the body it should be imaging? Well, the answer, it doesn't really know. If we went back to the pulses used in an MRI scan, we can see that the frequency of the photon used matches the Larmor frequency, and the Larmor frequency itself is dependent on the magnetic field applied to the atoms. So if we were able to control the magnetic field applied to each segment of the body, we will be able to direct the MRI machine into which part of the body we are interested in. And this can be achieved by what is known as the slice selected gradient field. This slice has a different magnetic field than the external magnetic field built in the MRI machine. By using a radio frequency photon with a frequency that matches the Larmor frequency of this slice, only atoms in that area are going to be excited. If you ever took an MRI scan, you must be familiar with the extremely noisy sound that is produced in an MRI scan. However, if you didn't take an MRI scan before, I will now show you a sample of what it sounds like. This sound results from rapidly changing the magnetic field in the slice selected gradient in order to target an area for the imaging. And as they rebuild the stronger magnetic field, they vibrate slightly, rubbing into one another, producing this noise. Since an MRI machine uses a huge magnetic field as large as 5 Tesla, the current flowing in the coils of the machine must be enormous. As a response, the resistance in the wires will try to rebuild the flow of this extremely large current, and this can lead to an electric friction which can melt the coating of the wires. This problem can be overcome by two solutions. It's either by making the coating of the wires extremely thick, which isn't a very practical solution. Another solution to decrease the resistance is by decreasing the temperature. In a very low temperature, these wires are going to lose their resistance completely and will not rebuild the flow of the current. The coils of the MRI machine are made very conductive by being immersed in a liquid helium. Helium is very effective at decreasing the temperature of these coils and diminishing their resistance completely. Since this current experiences no resistance, it will never be used up, so an MRI machine will always be operating no matter if the power was on or not, so caution has to always be taken when you're nearby an MRI machine. Hope you enjoyed watching this video and that you had benefited from it, and thank you so much for watching.